Is it any wonder that car lots are filling up with pickup trucks? The latest statistics shows that Ram continually fills up lots. And while they're pitching some of them, the lots are still filling up with the 2025s. And even when some of these trucks sell, the average transaction price across the industry is dropping. It was $48,500. It's actually dropping. And year over year, we're seeing a 1% decrease. So the writing on the wall is inventory climbs, vehicle sales are down. And before we get rocking into it, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like the content, you like channels that focused on your well-being due to the cost of living crisis and buying vehicles, because there's your second largest investment. Definitely hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. And the vehicles that are selling aren't so many of the full-size trucks, nor is it expensive Jeeps, SUVs. And while Ram trucks aren't selling all that well, the Ford trucks, some of the best-selling pickup trucks in the market today, average transaction price of $68,000 is or help holding the average transaction price as high as it is. If it weren't for these very popular Ford F-150s like we're looking at here, or GMC or the Rams, then the average transaction price would be a lot lower than it actually is today. And while not all trucks are over $100,000, there are some lower cost options. Here's a brand new 2025. As we look here, we have a Ram. This one here is a 1500 SST right there. Beautiful unit. This is the latest and greatest, carrying the Hurricane engine. Of course, we look around, you have lots of great detail here. Now they've got the new script here by Ram, 4x4. Very basic set of wheels on there with Bridgestone skins. And look, high gloss finishing here. And hey, what do we got there? We have a price tag of $79,810. Throw on the out the door extras, admin costs and beyond, and as well GST and PST, HST and state taxes, whatever else you have. And you're probably out the door with this vehicle $86,000, $87,000. Here in the midst of the spring, after we get out of tax season, now there's huge incentives, and we're actually seeing some of the highest incentives, 6.7% increase, or about $3,200 increase of average incentive applied to a lot of these modern vehicles, just enough to get people in the door because people aren't buying, they're finally broke. And this video actually inspired me by a viewer named Roger that reached out. Before we get to Roger's story, don't mind me, I'm talking a little funny today. I actually just had a dental surgery of sorts. It was a little bit much, and now my jowls are a little bit rough. Can't really feel some on my face either. Feels like I'm having a stroke, which I shouldn't joke, but basically it's not. If you're thinking, hey, side of my face is drooping, it's actually not. It's because I was just at the dentist and they froze that side of my face. Anyway, Roger's story. So a viewer named Roger just reached out that he hadn't been in the car market for some time and he needed a new vehicle, and he was hoping to buy a pickup truck, and then he started looking, obviously seeing prices like this. You're seeing all kinds of incentives all over the place. Everybody's talking, it's a hustle, it's a bustle, and the industry's hot right now. There's lots of talk about the latest models, lots of incentives. There's lots of that rhetoric flying all over the internet. But when he came down and looked at some of these signs, and he checked a bunch of dealers, this is a Dodge dealer, a Ram dealer, but he checked with Ford as well, and he checked as well with Chevy, and he found that the prices were all fairly comparable for that same trim level of vehicle, with, of course, Ram being somewhat, for some reason, slightly higher than the rest. Even after looking into the incentives, he couldn't believe, after being out of the market for 6 or 7 years, because that was the last time he bought a new vehicle, he could not believe the cost of a brand new truck. See, part of the problem was he couldn't find any base trim, bottom of the barrel pickup trucks, at least on the local lots. So he wound up just doing some casual searching for trucks like we're seeing right here. Here we have some super duty trucks or heavy duty trucks. This one here carries the 3500 HD right there, and it's a Cummins turbo diesel, big mirrors. Of course, this one here does give you extra sunroof, and as well you get leather interior with all of the furnishings in this vehicle. But looking at this little hot rod here, what we have is a Laramie. As you can see right there, this is a Laramie truck, and it's 4x4, and it's a 1-ton diesel. Of course, it is a single rear wheel, so you can step it up your game even more and get the single or the dually. But he was looking at trucks like this in all of the makes, and they're all very similar. I mean, a truck like this, he also looked at Chevy and, of course, the Denali, the big HD trucks and the dualies, and they're all in the same place. And here we have a truck listed. We have a Ram 3500 Laramie Crew Cab Night Edition 4x4, and this vehicle is listed at $114,050. He was literally blown away, shocked. He said after checking a bunch of local dealers and networks, he could not believe, once he actually started digging in, how much and how expensive these new trucks were. And while Roger openly admitted he was thinking that this was actually first world problems, the sad reality is he's almost priced out of the market. I mean, he even commented about the homelessness and just be happy to have a home. And clearly people are setting up a home right here, obviously trying to stay warm, burning fences. And there was literally a tent encampment here about 2 days ago. And apparently Roger decided he couldn't afford a new truck anymore. You know, middle-class guy, just lunchbox Joe basically, or Roger if you will. he decided just to go out and buy a smaller subcompact SUV like this. It was just barely enough within his budget. Again, he doesn't make a ton of money. There's a guy that's making, $28 an hour, trying to support a family. All he could do was buy a smaller subcompact SUV, similar to this one here. But that's not the point. The point is he's priced out of the truck market, as are most people these days who once could afford a truck. And that's what's going on. That's why sales of lower cost vehicles like that are up, and full-size trucks like that Ram behind it are down. But see, these latest increases have just caused nothing but heartache, and a lot of buyers are now in a place where they can't afford what they did 5 or 10 years ago, just like Roger. So instead, they're making other choices. The Ford Maverick, for example, is a choice people are buying now because they can't afford maybe an XL or XLT F-150, because even those have sort of crept up out of the space. Now, those are $65,000, $70,000, and a lot of people can't afford those trucks, so they just go into the Maverick, that where maybe you can get one for 30 or 40. Instead, it just seems a much more agreeable place. But people are buying the smaller, more cost-effective vehicles because the average transaction price has dropped. It has, in fact, dropped $442 or 1% year over year, same time last year. We browse a GM lot. Here's a bunch of Chevys custom, and we have an RST, Silverado, High Country, LT, custom. A lot more trucks here to choose from. And I would say, for the most part, most of these trucks are in that $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. As soon as you get into the upscale trims and you get into the diesels, now you're pushing over $100,000 for a lot of these vehicles. Very expensive. And Ford's got a whole pile of problems they're trying to unload too. And we know the latest recalls, obviously we have some escapes here with the cracked injectors. A lot of recalls, a lot of quality issues. Same with the F-150, a lot of recalls hitting Ford, and now the GM or the CEO is trying to do his best to actually resist the urgency to send the models out to market right away without doing quality checks. And so, you're looking at XLs, XLTs. Oh, we have some Lightnings here. Apparently the best-selling electric truck on the market today. We have some XL, XLTs. And the latest, you see with the black logo on the front, we're talking there's some 25 model years here as well. So there's definitely a lot of inventory, and it's growing, it's building. People don't have the money, even for a $70,000 or $80,000 truck. It just doesn't seem to be a place where a lot of buyers are comfortable spending these days. And there's another piece of this puzzle too, is a lot of people, even if they have the money, they're not spending it as much. They're a little scared for their jobs, the volatility in the market. And they look around, there's people living in tents and under bridges, and they're just, in a lot of cases, there's guilt, there's the inflation factor, high interest rates. People are just resisting to buy, even if they can afford it. And so Roger just simply elected to go with a cheaper vehicle. As you can actually see, the market supply and demand is kicking in full force. The average vehicle, as of the beginning of May, we had most vehicles with way over 100-day supply, with 60 to 90-day supply being kind of the average or the sweet spot where you want to be. Any more than that, they want to really push incentives on that. But then there are a lot of vehicles like the new versions of Rams, Stellantis, Jeeps, Chrysler, Dodge products. A lot of those are at 150, 160 days supply. And that's a clear indication that people aren't buying them. Yes, you're going to make an argument that there's some new ones driving around. There always will be somebody buying at today's marketplace. But as to Roger's point, he couldn't afford it. He went with a cheaper alternative, and a lot of people are making that same choice. On top of it, I did offer to Roger, I said, what about used cars? Have you looked at that? He said, well, surprisingly, the used car market's especially challenging. The good quality late model stuff's almost as much as new, but with higher finance rates, so you don't see the value in that. And then on top of it, the older stuff, often you never know what you're getting. So he said he did a bunch of tire kicking and found some junk out there. There's a lot of problems, flooded vehicles, accident history, and vehicles like that. So the used car market's a bit of a fickle one too. Prices are still fairly high. They're kind of stable or holding, and they have slightly declined, but they haven't fallen off the cliff. So Roger just elected to go with something cheap, brand new, avoid all the hassle, get the better finance rates, and move on. And that's what a lot of buyers are doing. But their expectations of the type of vehicle they're buying has been reduced because they can't afford that $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 truck that they're basically giving the bird to because they can't afford it. A lot of people can't. And even commercial use. A lot of people are needing these vehicles for use for their business. And some of those can write them off as business expenses, leases. Sure, there's some great deals out there, but it's still a huge hit to the bottom line of even a business and operation. So these cost of these trucks is literally cost prohibitive. And that's why a lot of buyers now are electing just to get into something a lot cheaper. Have you ever wondered where new vehicles go that never sell? With Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, a lot of brands out there that aren't able to sell what they have currently in the new vehicle inventory. There gets a point where you can't pass them through other sales. Staff doesn't want them. Auctions don't want them. Where do they actually go? Right there, you're going to want to check that out. That's going to tell you the whole story. To see each and every one on the next one, we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.